Okay, welcome. We are going to learn how to overclock Radeon cards today. To start off, let's go to settings and make sure this is Radeon software. Make sure we're up to date here. If you're not, just update first. You also can get hardware info 64 if you want. It's a free download. Just spell it like that. This just helps you monitor everything and make sure you're not overheating. The drivers and firmware themselves in your CPU and GPU will automatically shut off or downclock if your temperatures get too high and stuff. But this is just a way that you can know how everything's running. And since we're starting over, I'm just going to reset it here. And what that does is resets the maximum values so that it saves while you're running stuff. To check your CPU, it's usually right near the top, and you can go to look at the core temperatures, and then your motherboard's usually somewhere in the middle. VRM is what you want to look for, the power delivery, and then GPU is what we want to stay on and keep an eye on things. So now we've got our graphics cards drivers up to date. We want to go to performance. Oh, the other thing is you're going to want to get 3D Mark. It's a free download. You get the demo. Don't pay for it unless you want to run multiple different benchmarks and then test your stuff out that way. But you don't need to. You can just get the free version. So now we're going to go to tuning, and we don't quite know where to start, but we're going to get a baseline with 3D Mark so we know what it runs like on default settings, and we can compare later. So you can ignore that previous result I had there. Okay, so our baseline is around 1700. Not the best. The average is 1780, so we're under average. Probably because a lot of people use the default overclocks and stuff like that. We're going to get a better result. We could do this just for fun. Let's see. It doesn't even have a overclock everything. Let's do it for fun. We'll see what they give us. See, and you can't do both VRAM and it's weird. So we'll run one more and see what it's like just from their default overclock. So that didn't help much. Yeah, this is why I'm doing this, to show people how to do it properly. Oops. So we'll go back to tuning and we'll go to custom. Now we're going to cheat a little bit. Just makes it a lot faster. What I did is I asked AI what kind of frequencies and voltages I can run at, like the average card, and this is my exact card model. So if you have a different card, ask the same question, but put your card model in here. So you can get a better starting point, and then you can kind of just copy my process. So what we're going to do is start at the low end. So 2750, 2650. And we are going to have to turn everything on. We're just going to turn off 0 RPM for safety reasons, just so it doesn't overheat. It shouldn't anyway, but we're just being extra cautious. So 2750 and 2650, and then they crank the voltage all the way up. That's fine, because we're gonna turn it down at the end. So you can do this too. I'll show you what to do to be cautious before you get in, and we want fast timing. And before we get into the benchmark, we're just going to do a stress test and keep an eye on the temperature. And The drivers themselves will give you a driver error if your GPU gets too hot, and you can also just close it quickly. But you just want to make sure you're not getting into the high 80s and 90s with the full power unlock. So everything looks good here. If you're steadily climbing here, you probably have a cooling problem. You got a bit of a fluctuation there, but in the stress test it does weird things, so don't worry too much about that. So we'll close that. Everything looks good. Just be aware if your temperatures are steadily climbing, you might have a cooling issue. So check your graphics card physically, see if there's dust caked onto it and stuff, and clean it off with some air if it is very dusty. So we'll go back to this. So now we have kind of the baseline overclock that most people get. Did we not apply changes before we did that? Let's just do that again. Should be the same, but no, yeah, I didn't apply before. So we got a little bit more power consumption because we turned everything up. So we'll just watch our thermals one more time. I've already done this, so I know it's going to be fine, and you just want to make sure it's not steadily climbing like I said before. So we should max out once the fans ramp up to full. Yeah, see there, we're going down already once the fans are on full. So we're not climbing, everything's good. Okay. So now we can run a baseline test with the standard overclock, just to get another baseline, and we should write down what our, now I've already done a bunch of tests to learn how to do this properly with Radeon, so let me start a new section here. So this is score, this is low frequency, high frequency, millivolts, and VRAM frequency. So I forget what our default score was, but it was around 1710. You can do yours perfectly if you want. Default, it's going to be default in the center here. And then we did do a standard GPU overclock where we got 1710 too. So I think it was actually lower here. It was like 1707. And we'll do 1710. And that's default GPU Core OC. And then we'll do our settings here. We'll do, I think it's 2650, 2750, 2200. And then we'll run one more. Okay, just from doing that, just from copying the settings that other people got, we are already in a way better place. It's more than 10%, I believe. We can quickly check. So we had 1710-ish divided by, what is it, 1855? And we're already 8% higher. So that's good. So we'll write this down, 1855. And that's a good starting point. That's why we do that, because it just saves a lot of time. If you don't care about getting like max, like last 2%, 3%, you could just do this, and how you end is you lower your voltage until you see a drop. So you'd lower your voltage like 20 points, 20 millivolts every time until your score drops in here. And then once your score drops, you'll go back up like 10 or 20 until it's back to what it was. And that's how you find how much power the card actually needs, roughly. So that's how you do that. We're going to try to get maximum performance. So we're gonna just fine tune it a little more. So first we're gonna go with VRAM. Another good thing to check is just make sure we didn't get crazy high on our temps. So maximum hotspot, excuse me, we're at 74 right now. So that's well under 90, which is where my personal limit is. Preferably 85, but the card itself, I believe, will start throttling at around 100. So you can go higher, but if you're gonna run like that every day, personally, I wouldn't. Just because it's expensive card. So now we're gonna check for our RAM, VRAM limit. So we're gonna leave the voltage on max, so we know we're not, we know we're sending enough power if we're on max, basically. And we're just gonna find our limit here. So we go up 20. We're not gonna stress test, actually. We're just gonna run another one. Okay, so our score went down slightly, but it's basically the same. So we're going to back it off a little bit by like 1 point. I can show quickly. Yeah, let's do that, just so you know. If you go way over, what's the best way? If you go way over your RAM limit, what will happen is you'll get error correction. Now you can do a stress test and it'll probably pass. Excuse me. It'll probably pass the stress test, but it'll go into error correction when you're gaming if you're over your limit, and then you'll actually have worse performance. So see here, it's passing the stress test, but our power drop, that was error correction there, I believe. It actually happened twice. It happened over here too. So we'll show with a benchmark now. So that's why we're using the benchmark instead of stress test to verify everything, because this should show us if we're actually getting more performance. Okay, so that's exactly what I expected. Mostly because I've already done this, but you can do the same thing with yours until your score goes down, even though you turned up the RAM. So that means you're hitting error correction, you're not actually getting more performance. So I think we're at 2240, right? And then our score was, what was it, 1838? Oops, yeah. So this number is no good because our score went down. So now we're gonna leave it at 2216, which is just under where we started dropping. And then if it's still lower, we can bring it down further. Here, I already found that that's the best anyways, so I'm not gonna be surprised if that's the best, but just to show you how I got there. Okay, so now we have our RAM sweet spot. Now we want to find our frequencies and our voltage. First frequencies, so we leave the voltage at full, and we're going to go up in increments of 50. And for some reason, you kind of have to turn the minimum frequency up on these cards in order for it to be stable. I don't quite understand why, but it's probably because if it fluctuates too much, the voltage also fluctuates too much, and then it becomes unstable. So keep this about 100 below the maximum. So we can check our temperatures again. Not much has changed. We're still at 74. When we start really cranking up the frequencies, that's when you're going to see the temperature go up a bit. So just keep an eye on that as you're doing it. So everything's applied now, I think, yeah. And now we'll do one more. And our score went up again. So that's good. We will record that. 1874. 1874. And we went up 50. So we went 2700 and 2800. And then we'll just delete this and save in case we have a crash from overclocking. And then now we can try keep going up more because we're still gaining in performance here. So we can go up a little more, and we'll do 50 again. And we'll leave the voltage on full, we'll leave everything else. And we'll see if we get more performance. Okay, we almost hit 1900, so that's really good. We went up again. 1899. Now you can look at relative numbers here and see if you're nearing your. So we went up 50 last time and we got about 40 points, and now we went up 50 again. We only got 25 points. So we are nearing our maximum. So let's just inch it up a little bit less. 65. 65. And we will try one more time and see if we can squeeze out a little more. And we'll just add this. I forgot to put our core here, but we're at maximum for all of them, so we can just put it once. We're at 1150. 1150. There we go. For all these. And then now we'll run one more with the new clocks. And we hit 1900, so I think this is a pretty safe bet for what our maximum clocks are. So we can write that down. Was it 1902? Yeah. So we barely got any performance, but we did get a little bit. That was 50. So we're definitely near our maximum clocks. So you could even like bring this back like 5 or something, because we're not getting much performance out of that. So let's go to 60. And we're also gonna start testing how much power we actually need. So we left this at full in order to make sure everything's stable and has enough power. But now we're gonna test if we can back it off a little bit and still keep the same performance. And the reason we're doing benchmarks again is because it's showing us what our actual performance is, whereas a stress test might look stable, but you're not even getting, like, you're getting less performance. Like I showed that before with the VRAM, it looks stable, but then we lost performance turning it up. So we're trying to find in real world use cases what the best performance is. And now we're trying to find the lower power delivery that will still give us that performance. Okay, now we're still hitting 1900, which is basically the same score, but we lowered our power, so that's a good thing. 1900, we went to 2760, 2860, 2216, except we lowered our core to, what was it? 1130. So that's just going to save us a little bit on, we can check what our hotspot maximum is. Still 74, that's really good. So we can reset it now for our last couple tests. And we will go down maybe like 10 more millivolts and see if we're doing good still. So we found our CPU frequency limit, we found our VRAM limit, and now we're just finding our power, our necessary power delivery, but our lowest power delivery. So if our performance drops when we're dropping the voltage, then we need to go back up. And if our performance stays the same, then we can keep going down until we find that spot where we need to go back up. So we lost 1 point, which isn't really anything. That could just be like random Windows stuff going on in the background. But we will record it anyway and do one more test, I think. So we're at 1120. So 1899, 1120. So we're right around the spot probably. I think if we lower it one more time, we're going to lose performance. So we'll do that just to verify. I wouldn't call 1 point losing performance, but when you start to lose more than that, like 10 to 15, then it's probably the setting. Okay, so we went down a little bit more, not a lot. Let's compare it with our previous results. So we went down to 1110, I believe. So I've been trying to ignore the other results this far, 1895, just to see what I end up with if I end up around the same number. So before I ended up at 1130 with 1918. The one difference is I'm recording with OBS on a higher resolution, so that's going to take some of the performance. So I'm not too worried about this number, but this number is interesting. So I only got 4 more by going up 10, but maybe we run at, and we did have a higher number here. So let's try, just for the science, I guess, we'll try these settings and see if it's better. See if we get a higher score. Performance, tuning, so 1130, and we had a little bit higher clocks, 1790 and 1890. We got, yeah, so we went very aggressive the last time. Let's see if that actually increases it or not. Did I write down my score that time? Yeah. Okay, so we'll try this once. Okay, so we kind of got better, but not really. We did get this with the setting that I had this time, 1902 here. So I think the last one I did was right. I think I learned, and I think this is probably a bit high, and you might run into errors. So I think we found the right number right here, but with this setting. So I'm gonna say the final is 19, was it 05? 02? 1902, and we're gonna leave it at 2765. I can verify this, but I'm pretty confident here. 2865, 11, 20, I think, 30, 1130. Yeah, that's what I got last time too. So 1130 and 2216. And so I just need to bump these back to 65. And now if we lower these to 65 and we get the same result, we know that that was a little high. So we'll do one last run, and this should be the final run. I won't edit out the benchmark this time. So for the first benchmark, there was some stuttering and some lag on default settings. And you'll notice this is quite smooth. Excuse me. One thing is, because, like, if you're wondering why the FPS is so low compared to a game where you're getting like 60 to 100 FPS usually, it's just that's how they test high-end video cards. They need images, high fidelity, high resolution images that push the card to its limit. They needs a lot of RAM delivery, needs high clocks to process properly. So that's why it's a low FPS, even though like you want higher in games, but the benchmark intentionally does that. But you can expect the same uplift. So if you get a 10% uplift in the benchmark, you can expect that in your game. So if you're getting 70 FPS, it'll be like 77 roughly after the benchmark. And I noticed this to be pretty accurate. Like when I was playing Path of Exile 2, I got about the same uplift in game. So we went down 5. That's interesting. I don't know if that's just because... Are we still at 1130? I don't know if that's because I have more processing going to, yeah, we're still at 1130. Everything looks good. Yeah, that might just be a Windows fluctuation where Windows was doing something in the background. I'll run one more and I'll edit it out this time, or I'll edit one of them out and leave the other one. I expect it just to go up. It's only like 0.05 FPS, so it might not go up, but we can close this. That could be why. Without OBS on high resolution recording, I was getting, I think 19, it's in that chart, I think 1920-ish. But those last two numbers, that's like a fraction of a frame, so on average, it's not a big deal. Very smooth. Yeah, so it's just probably like a Windows fluctuation or something. So 1900 is very good. We're getting near the best score with someone with this setup, so that's a good thing to end on. We will save this. Just in case. So sometimes Windows, if you have fast boot enabled, when Windows boots up, it'll for some reason reset your overclock. It might be because it has the state saved or something. I'm not quite sure. So if you don't like that, you can go into your BIOS or Windows settings and turn off fast boot. But if you save it like that, you can always just reload it. You don't have to put everything in manually again. So let's just review this. Yeah, so I ended up a little high last time, which wasn't hurting anything, but I just didn't need to be that high in the frequency. And the power delivery is about right. I maybe could go down to 1120, but if your thermals are fine, it's just going to be more stable with a little bit extra power. And my thermals are good. Not even hitting 80. Yeah, like I said before, you can also check your VRM, not even close to max. CPU, not even close to max. If you're running into CPU temperatures being high, you can upgrade your CPU fans, you can blow out your heatsink, get the dust out, you can undervolt your CPU. I would probably do them in somewhat in that order. The fan and maybe the blow out the dust first, and then if that doesn't work, upgrade the fan. But most systems shouldn't run into that just because of a GPU overclock, because most of that stress is going on the GPU. And if your motherboard VRMs are high, you can install a case fan that's pointing around the CPU area of the motherboard. But that's about it. Thanks for watching. Hope you got some free performance out of this. Appreciate any subscribers or likes. It's a new channel that I'm trying to get going, I guess. I don't know. Appreciate any of the love. Thanks everyone for watching, and hope you have some high FPS in game.